celebration of Juneteenth in the city of Cedar Park. So we see that the spirit of Juneteenth is spreading. And let's give Cedar Park a hand. And Alexis and Alex Winston gave an incredible speech. You know, it's incredible to hear from young people. They just graduated from high school. They're both going to Texas A&M in the fall. But when I think about Juneteenth, I think about how important it is, because when we talk about the Emancipation Proclamation, which was issued by Abraham Lincoln officially on January 1st, 1863, one of the things I think we need to remember is the complete language of that. Because in that language, it only freed the slaves in the states that were in rebellion. The states that were in rebellion. So Juneteenth is very, very important because it really officially, June 19th, 1865, making African Americans know that they were free. So, but we are in what I would say some of the most tumultuous times politically that we've seen in a long, long time. And I can talk about my age of born in 1960, and as an adult, I don't think I personally, as an adult, have seen such tumultuous times. And it made me think of somebody that I was listening to. And I remember this song. And this is how the song goes. I'm going to quote some excerpts from the song. Lord knows it's winter in America. The Constitution, a noble piece of paper, with free society. Well, they struggled, but they died in vain. And now democracy is ragtime on the corners, on the court, hoping it rain. Yes, he's been hoping for some rain, but it just don't look like rain. And I see the robins, perched in barren treetops, watching last-ditch racists marching across the floor. And like the peace sign that filtered in our dreams, that never had a chance to grow. They never had a chance to grow. Somebody want to go tell them it's winter. It's cold. It's like winter in America. Time when all the healers, people who have been killed or been betrayed, say, but the people know there's something wrong. I don't leave my fingers in public. Hey, it's winter. It seems like winter in America. Gil Scott Heron.
Yes.
But I believe in faith, hope, and charity. But we must also believe in preparation. And part of that ongoing preparation is reading our history. Some may say we do not need to read history. And I say to you, if books and history were not important, then there would have not been all the efforts to control what is taught in the history books. So I want to quote some of the authors I've read recently over the past year since I last spoke to this group that give me ongoing insight, because what I've learned with an 18-year-old in a house, a 36-year-old in Houston, and a 33-year-old in Washington, D.C., is that I cannot afford to ever stop learning.
It's true.
Never.
It's true.
So Manisha Sinha, author of The Rise and Fall of the Second American Republic, Reconstruction, 1860 to 1920. This is what she had to say. Even with the many successes of the Black freedom movement in the 20th and 21st century, the betrayal of Reconstruction haunts American democracy. Let me say that again. The betrayal of Reconstruction haunts American democracy. And that betrayal started in 1876. The election between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden. That was a tie. And it went to the House of Representatives. And when they finally were able to resolve it, the deal that was cut was that Rutherford B. Hayes would be given the votes to become president of the United States if he removed the troops from the South. And ultimately, we saw where that led us. And then there's Karen Cox, author of No Common Ground, Confederate Monuments and the Ongoing Fight for Racial Justice. And in this book, she traces the history of the monuments to advocates of white supremacy, rewriting, let me say that again, rewriting the story of the causes of the Civil War, the United Daughters of the Confederacy. The United Daughters of the Confederacy. Their fundamental mission was to shape the way future generations of white Southerners remembered the Civil War, the Confederacy, and slavery, as well as to vindicate the men and women of the Confederate generation. Their efforts provided white Southerners with a reason to take pride in Confederate heritage and to defend that heritage, including white supremacy, even in the face of a changing South. And we all know what it means when you hear the term states' rights. And we all know that that often is driven in the narrative to say why the war was fought. But I will tell you that I read the Articles of Secession. I read them. And slavery was front and center. Then there's Richard F. Hamilton, author of Miseducating Americas. The United Confederate Veterans, and United Daughters of the Confederacy formed committees to promote their version of the war. Their friendly correspondence with northern publishers proved successful, some putting out revised editions of their U.S. history textbooks, others producing separate editions for the southern market. Does this approach sound familiar today? And then there is P. Joseph, who wrote The Third Reconstruction, America's Struggle for Racial Justice in the 21st Century. And he writes, Black Construction, the book by the famous civil rights leader and intellectual W.E.B. Du Bois, demolished the myths and lies of lost cause histories that presented the period after slavery's end as a horrible mistake that required the heroic intervention of the Ku Klux Klan to make it right. So to establish the history that we need to know, W.E.B. Du Bois had to write that history. Next time I'll bring a sponge. So when you take a look at what's going on today, when you listen to the lyrics of Brian Jackson and the singing, the rapping of Gil Scott-Heron, when you think about where we are today, this is what I've learned. The struggle is a lifetime commitment. It is a lifetime commitment. But there are many ways you can commit. You can commit with your donations. You can commit with your volunteer work. And you can commit with your leadership. And I speak as someone who has been active with the Texas NAACP since 1992. There's never been a time when other organizations, other voices have been planning on changing and rolling back the policies we fought so hard to achieve. So much is being done to roll back the policies and the programs that we fought so hard to achieve. That's why the struggle is a lifetime commitment. Because as I've read these books through the years, where we are today did not happen overnight. There was a plan. There was an ongoing plan. And I'm not a conspiracy nut. But there was an ongoing plan to get where we are today. That has been in place for decades. And I kid you not. As a father of an 18-year-old, I say to you, we have to prepare our children for the moments of the future by teaching them the history they are not being taught in school. We cannot depend on school to teach them the history that we know they need to know. And we have to encourage them to get involved in clubs and organizations so they can be prepared for the challenge of activism and leadership. I remember when I started to bring my daughter, Maya Hay, to the radio station when she was 1.5 years old. I was going every Monday to KAZI 88.7 FM to record my show, Economic Perspectives. I would pick her up from the Child Development Center after work, bring her with me to the station, and I would do a phone interview, or I would do production work. And my daughter started to like to play on the mic. She loved to talk on the mic. Then she began to interview me. She loved to play interviewing. So when she was 7 years old, one of the authors I had interviewed quite a bit wrote a children's book for the first time. I went to my daughter, I said, "Do you want to do this interview?" I gave her the book to read first. I gave her a choice. And she said, "Yes, Daddy, I want to do this interview." So I scheduled the interview. I helped her along with the interview. And then periodically, as I saw children's books come across me at KZI, I would bring the book to my daughter and I would ask her, "Would you like to do this interview?" Many times she said no. But one of the things I am proud of is I am a fan of Pedro Martinez, the legendary pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. And I was able to persuade her to do that interview, that children's books. And then when she was 10 years old, and my wife can attest to this, she came to me out of the blue, Roger, and she told me, with no prompting for me, "Daddy, I want my own show." I don't think she liked the way I was scheduling these interviews for her. So I went to Mary Nickerson, who at the time was the program director for KZI, today the interim general manager, and I said, "Maya wants her own show." He said, "She's got to write a proposal." So we helped her to write a proposal. And she started her own show called Kids' Choice Book Show. And then when she got to 13, she said, "I want to expand the show because I want to bring a couple of my friends in." Alex and Alexis Winston, they're twins, born on the same day at the same hospital my daughter was born at. I met their father in the nursery. That's how we met. And when they connected at Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church summer camp when they were 7 years old, they reconnected. Now they call themselves the triplets. And then when she got to Henderson High School in Pflugerville, out of the blue, she's planning to be a doctor. She wants to be a doctor. She says, "I want to be on the debate team." And I said, "You know what? We're going to make it happen." And so she committed herself to learning these thoughts, these ideas. And she had some incredible lessons she learned from being on the debate team as she competed at UC Berkeley, at Harvard, at the University of Kentucky, here in Austin, Texas, in the UIL state tournament this year, finishing second in informative speaking. But here's one of the lessons she learned as she competed. She would come to us and say, "They're not playing fairly. They're not competing fairly." This would happen periodically, by the way, not every day. This is an anecdote. But she would come and say, and then she found that there were certain groups that would treat her and her partner differently and would talk to them in a different way. If you know what I'm saying, if you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about. That's right. And I said, "Maya, you're getting your introduction to the real world. The real world is not fair. And you need to be prepared to work, compete, and be successful in this kind of environment." But also said, "Remember, in some ways you are a child of privilege. And because you are a child of privilege, I never want you to forget that you are to respect not just the principal, not just the counselor, not just the teacher, but the cafeteria worker and the janitor, the same exact way. Doesn't matter how high they are or how much not as high, economically speaking, they are. Treat them the same.
Amen.
So as we look at where we are today, I urge you to work with your nieces, your nephews, your sons, your daughters, your granddaughters, your grandsons, and give them an opportunity to see the world from your eyes. Bring them to the radio station with you. Bring them to the corporate office to them. Bring them to the music studio with you. Bring them to Juneteenth with you. We have to get them ready for the real world. And I also say to you as I come to a close, because I could go another 30 minutes, but I don't want Robin to give me the high sign saying that it's time to go. Side eye, not the high side. Share the stories of the struggles of your parents, of your aunts, of your uncles, of your grandparents, of your great-grandparents. When I think of my father-in-law, Milton Wright, and when he tells me his story, and he shared it with Maya, of growing up in a single-parent household. His mother dies. His parents were not married. He goes from living in Connecticut to Harlem, learning how to survive, living with the family that his father put him with in Harlem. Learning how to survive, learning how to prosper. Goes to work for a bank, Manufacturer Hanover Bank. He is so good at banking, they asked him to teach the class on banking. First black at that bank to teach a banking class. And you can guess what happens. The white students, and they're all white, don't want him teaching the class. But you know what he says? I don't care. I'm going to do my job. And the stories of him getting involved and founding an organization for black bankers in New York City, working for a Manufacturer Hanover Bank in New York City, helping Percy Sutton find the right banker at Manufacturing Hanover Bank to get the loan to remodel the Apollo Theater. Moving to Texas and becoming president of the Texas Guaranteed Student Loan Corporation. Did a job so well that he ended up president emeritus. But you know what? He never forgot where he came from. And he always demanded of our daughter, his granddaughter, and my wife can testify to this, to be on time, to be prepared, to do your best. And I think the best thing we can do when it comes to work with our youth is to tell them the stories, teach them the histories, support them, urge them to get involved with organizations, with their unions, with the civil rights organizations like the NAACP, wherever they can make a difference, and helping them to understand this is a lifetime commitment if you want to see democracy survive in the United States of America. Thank you.